Hey guys, so I kind of wanted to share my story of how I was able to hit 8K MMR in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Um, in the background, you'll see the game that I played that actually got me there, and I just kind of wanted to share some thoughts that I've had on the climb and how to get here. Um, you'll see on the screen that I was very hard stuck in around the like 6 to 7.5K MMR for a pretty long while. And a couple of these big insights really just got me to a point where I felt comfortable with climbing and a lot more comfortable with how to actually play. Um, so one of the biggest things that I got was figuring out how to establish early. One of the really good cards for doing this is apples. I found that apples is a one cost, essentially a 3/9, and I think in a worst case, it ends up kind of screwing over your curve. It might cost something like 2 to 3 gold, by the time if you have to like tip. But at that point, you can really just have a really solid board and then find a strike oil later. And that ends up fixing your curve to get back, and you then have a bunch of these really good minions for trading into other ones. You can imagine, giving one extra attack often allows minions to trade up, at least on their tavern tier, and then maybe sometimes one more. And then it's able to also tank, 2 hits. And then if you find the strike oil later, you can use that to fix the curve after the turn that you ended up taking the apples and then going back. Um, the other point, I guess, kind of piggybacking is strike oil is often bait unless it isn't. It's easier to say unless you're doing a strat that's really centered around using strike oil to, kind of like I was just saying, either fix your curve or you're doing something with a lubber strat or something like that. I find that it's almost just as risky as playing something like overconfidence. It's maybe a little less risky, but essentially what you're saying is you want to play a card down on your board to have this extra gold. And unless you have that early board pressure, you're going to end up taking, something like 10, 15 damage during the time, and that often costs you a spot unless you high rolled the lobby. And you'll see it with this, and then a lot of my other tips that I'm going to be bringing up here. That oftentimes, yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is just where I'm not the best player. Is I'm often playing for that third, fourth position. I'm not a very good player when it comes to finishing a first. That's probably where I'm gonna have to improve to go from an 8 to 9K. But at least right now with where I'm at, I found that this is a really good strat for securing those third, fourth positions. Is don't play the super high risk. Strike oil, in my opinion, is this high risk stuff. I guess the next thing is, I'm going to be sharing, some stats from my HS replay, and like they're like tier 7 or whatever. And I guess the first thing I would say is I don't think this is like a pay to win kind of thing. Yeah, sure, it's helpful to have some extra data to kind of back up the decisions that you're making, but a lot of the times you kind of have to think through why something is good. And just seeing something's good, alone doesn't make it good. I guess an example that I had with this was I was doing one of the lubber strats that Jeef has been doing a lot lately. If you've checked out his videos, I'll probably link it. Um, but I was trying to figure out if Deathwing would work as a hero to do the lubber strat. And I was kind of thinking it over, demons and elementals were in the game, and I found that it ended up being a really good strat. And my reasoning behind it was it ended up letting me play these really high health units while getting the attack for free. It's the main problem with the lubber strat is you get these minions that are like 3/100 or whatever, and you use Deathwing, and a 3/100 is a lot worse than something like a 7/90 minion for the breakdown, just because it can trade a lot more. And that's, I guess, one other kind of strat that I've learned is being really good is, I guess, just seeing the lobby and trying to figure out what your hero can do in it. This was a lot more prevalent of a tool in the anomalies meta, but I think it still comes over here. It's kind of something like the gameplay you'll be seeing is Shutterwalk. Shutterwalk works in Demon Murlocs really well. So seeing stuff like that, finding the way that you can cheese in early game so that you still have a lot of health getting into the late game, so you have a position where you're securing that fourth place, and then you can try to find ways to high roll and get that first, second place. Um, One other niche trick that I've been doing that I haven't seen a lot of people doing is what I'm calling the double armor. So, you can see a very obvious use of taking, say you're at something like 13 health. There's 5 people in the lobby, so you can still only take the damage cap of 15. That puts you at over 15, right? Is if you're getting that single armor. Where I find a little bit harder to kind of think over, and maybe this is just I haven't seen a lot of other people or other streamers saying how to do this, is what I'm calling a double armor. So let's say you're at 23 health. If you use the armor spell, that puts you at 28. You're still below cap, right? So you would go, say you're at 28, you lose 15, you go to 13. If you armor again, that puts you at 18, which puts you still above a cap. So it's a lot more expensive, right? It's 6 gold for essentially an ice block, which, I mean, I'll be honest, if there was a 6 cost ice block spell, people would probably be buying it all the time. But that's essentially what you're doing here, is you're spending 6 gold to survive an extra round. You can use this to maybe find a ghost or whatever, but I found that this strat is really good for going from like a 5th to a 4th to a 3rd, giving yourself a turn to stabilize. Oftentimes, though, if you're doing this, you're kind of throwing away getting a first. Which I think probably one of the things that's been holding me back for going from that 8 to 9k now is I probably need to do this less, because you're spending 6 gold that you're not tempoing out your board at all, but you are securing those extra rounds. So that's kind of a little niche trick that I've been doing that I don't know. I kind of want to see if it's actually the right play or not, but it's been working at least. And then I guess kind of the last thing I want to talk about is what I see as the current meta. And I think each of these I'll probably do more videos in the future and breaking them down. But this is kind of what I see as the way that the meta should be looking. Just the generic that, each hero kind of has its own niche strats that make these better. For example, demons are a lot better if you're playing Shutterwalk than, a different hero because you can, eat the entire shop or whatever. But the way that I kind of see it is I see there's kind of like 3 breakdowns of compositions. And this is something that I guess I'd like to see HS Replay do more of when they talk about the compositions in their tool. Is they talk about the tribes, but they don't talk about the stuff on top of the tribes. So the way that I kind of see it is there's a tier 1 strat right now of just doing like spell BS type stuff. This is kind of where I throw something like doing a lubber with Nala and Azurite on, the tier 2 strat that, Jeef has been loving. Doing, generic just Azurite to scale up elementals. Something like here where you have this board that you're getting stats with, a Nala or some type of menagerie type thing. And this is essentially like, I'm going to talk about what I consider the tier 3 strat of big stats. And this is like big stats, but it works. It's like big stats on the good units. So the next thing that I see as like the tier 2 strats are a bunch of the tribes. And then within the tribes, there's kind of a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 thing. Right now, it seems like the best strats are Beast and Undead. When we're talking about Undead, we're talking about KT strats. Normally something with KT Phalanx or KT and Morose. Morose is kind of if you're doing a strict Undead build. I've seen some people do the Summoner strat. The Summoner strat to me seems like it's too slow. But if you get an early Summoner, you can do that one too. The Beast strat right now seems to be you have a bunch of Undead Beasts. You get a triple to get Wolf. And then you use Wolf to then as like the enabler for Beast. So Beast to me seems like the high risk play because you need the tier 6 minion to really enable it. And you have a bunch of stuff I guess that are like good units. Like you can play the Dino, you can play Feathermanes and stuff. But if you don't have Wolf, you're gonna lose the lobby. What I kind of see is right now tier 2. This is the stuff that even if you hit, you're probably going to have to at least scam a little bit in the lobby. So this is stuff like Murlocs, poison scam type stuff. Just getting a bunch of, it's the typical Murlocs of use Brand to find a bunch of Murlocs, use the Murlocs to apply a ton of poisonous. You have a couple of the big guys, and you do the death rattles to get stuff on the board. Nagas seem like a tier 2 kind of thing right now. I haven't been having a lot of luck with it, and I think this is something that I want to play more. I've been kind of avoiding it as I've been trying to push the climb, but I think it's time for me to kind of learn this. But what it seems to be is that you kind of just need to get Lord of Gains with some type of spell creator, and then you go from there. I've seen a lot of times people baited into taking Drakari before they have Lord of Gains, and it ends up just kind of, I don't know, you spend a lot of gold and you're putting a lot of lists, and where I think Naga kind of fall into a similar trap as the Beast, where you're enabled by the tier 6 minion, but where it becomes a problem is that the payoff seems a lot worse for the Naga compared to Beast. Um, the next one, I think elementals, a lot of the BS strats kind of are based on elementals like Azurite or the Lover stuff. So it kind of makes sense that this is kind of like one of the easy fallbacks of after you do one of those big payoffs is you go over to elementals. And you can do something like Master Realities with Sandstone Drake, something like that. Um, but I find elementals right now, it's very APM heavy. If you don't know what you're doing, you kind of get lost very quickly. So it's a very much, I think, it's a kind of like a pay to win type strat in the sense of, you've had to pay a lot of cost in your MMR for you to start winning with it. But other than that, I think elementals are in a really strong spot right now. They have a lot of utility in elementals with, the Quillbore, with they have their own cleave essentially with wildfire. So they're in a very interesting spot where elementals seem like a really good rotational spot where you go from something like big stats and scam into elementals into whatever you're going. The other tribe that seems to be I've found a lot of luck with has been demons. It's a little bit worse right now because they got rid of the one spell temporarily that gives the minions in the tavern a buff, and I was having a lot of luck with kind of like this consume demon build of stuff like the Drake and the 5 cost that eats whenever you play a demon. So it's a little bit worse doing that right now. However, you can still do this. My 8K win game is with this on Shutterwalk with just getting a Drake really big, and then from there using spells to get Divine Shields. Demons are in a really good spot because of the Divine Shield spell. They nerfed it a bit by making it cost 6 instead of 5. But it's still really good. One of my other favorite heroes to do this with is George, because George can give Divine Shield. What you can do is also use the 5 cost spell that changes into the mask, change the hero power, and get George that way. Unfortunately, when you're Shutterwalk, it's really hard to give up that hero power, but it works. And demons seem actually in a pretty good safe spot. Demons, I find like you can pretty much force them, and at anything like 7K and below MMR, you're almost get free top 4. Where demons kind of fall off is trying to they get scammed very easily. All the scam cards play really well into demons because demons don't summon a lot. They're just a bunch of big stat guys. So next, I guess what I can consider right now the tier 3 tribes, and I guess the point to the tier 3 tribes is I don't think they're bad. I think more it's you need to do more to get them enabled, or you need to use them to go to other stuff. So the first one is Pirate. Pirate really fits what I'm saying is this. You use them to get to something else. So you can do something like Tethys. Tethys generates a bunch of gold, and then from Tethys you can use that to go into one of the other strats. Dragons are kind of similar. There's kind of two. Dragons are in a weird place right now where they have 2 identities. One is the end of turn, Drakari type Drakes. The other is the battle cry with Caligos. And what I've found I've had the most luck with is you kind of do a mix between them. So you start off end of turn, you end up selling off all the bad end of turn dragons, and you just keep like the Divine Shield and the guy that creates battle cries. And from there, you do transition into Caligos once you have a brand, and you have dragons enabled that way. Dragons are in a hard spot right now also with the spell generator guy moving to 6. Yes, they gave him more stats, which I think this is really a buff for like Alexstrasza. But other than that, I found dragons have just been really lacking for me. The last 2, Mechs and Quillbore, they're in really weird spots. Mechs, I actually think, are in an okay spot. I just find that I don't actually play them a lot, and I think that's because they're so hard to enable. Unlike a lot of the other tribes, I feel like mechs you need like almost 3 or 4 cards together for it to work. So first, you need the 4-drop that's creating the magnetizes. You need the guy that's buffing you for each magnetize you do. you need the 6-drop that lets you duplicate the magnetizes, and then you also need like the something that magnetizes too, whether that be a Faux Reaver or the Divine Shield 3-drop. I'm forgetting the name, but whatever. Um, so it's a really good comp when you have the pieces, and then like if you put a Drakari on top of that, like you're just broken. So it's like yes, once you have all the pieces, it's really good. The problem is that it requires a lot of pieces to get together, um, and I find oftentimes like you just don't have the time or the gold to get all the pieces together. And Quillwork fall into a different thing. The issue with Quillwar is I find that you kind of have to start scaling them very early. Um, and oftentimes you can't scale them early while you're doing the strats, at least I'm doing, which are these like big stats early strats. So the things that scale the Quillboards are things that scale the blood gems, right? Which we have the Jazzer on 2 now and the Piper on 3. And the issue is, on 1 through 4, Tavern Tiers, at least my playstyle right now, is just apples and big minions, and I often don't take those 2 and 3 drops because I'm playing stuff that's just playing for the board more. Um, and oftentimes it's too late in the game to start scaling my gems. So I think where Quillboards could get I get some playability, and this is something that again I'm probably gonna need to try to learn, is getting a way that you can use them early and still not fall behind. If I were to guess, heroes like Tavish could potentially use them really well, where you have that early game stuff that you're fighting for the board less, and then from there you can scale the boards while using your hero power to fight for board control. But other than that, it's just very hard. Um, and then I guess there's kind of so that's all the tribes, right? Those are kind of like the inner tribes as a tier 2 strats. So spell bullshit is just tier 1. Tribes are tier 2. Tier 3, I'm gonna call this just big stats and scam. And this is kind of I guess what I'm getting at is this is what you should be going for by default. You know, while you're going from tavern 0 to 4, I personally just think you play big stats. You get the biggest board you can. You make it so you can try to find ways to level up. If you're doing okay, you go to 5, and then from 5 on Tavern Tier 5, you can use that to like actually create a strat. Or you just stay on 4 and go for a top 4. And kind of you go from big stats. Once you're on 4, that's where you start transitioning to do big stats, and I call it plus scam. And normally, I guess the way that I kind of do the transitions is you do big stats plus scam, then you do scam plus tribe, and then you do just tribe. And again, that's kind of why I think the things like the quill boards don't work out too well. Is it's hard to do this big stats first. It's a high risk play because if you don't have the big stats, you don't hit your quill board, you're getting an eighth. So that's at least what I found a lot of luck with. If you look at my ratings, changing this philosophy, going for apples a lot more is when I started doing this climb from where I was hard stuck 7K and was able to hit 8K. Um, but I definitely think apples is one of the best cards, and if you're not picking it up early, you should really look for it more. Like I've been forcing it. I've been screwing up my leveling curves. Turn 3 has been like the bane of my existence because I've given Bob a gold there like so many times. But luckily, there's enough one cost spells now that sometimes that kind of frees you up where turn 2 you're doing a buy a drop in apples. Turn 3 you can do apple buy a minion, um, and either buy a spell or you do something like a level sell off whatever you bought turn 1 and buy or something like that. But I don't know. Turn 3 right now seems like the very creative turn. I think this has been doing a lot good about against people that are just doing the traditional curve of buy a minion 1, level up 2, doing that standard curve. And I find that if you're able to get this working, I found a lot of success with it, and we go from there. So thanks for listening. We'll see the rest of this gameplay of how I ended up hitting 8K. This is a really cool game with doing Shutterwalk dragons. I started off doing Murlocs in this, and you'll see I had some huge Murlocs. You'll see. I don't think I did apples in this one, but I had some huge Murlocs in this game. I had the early triple, found the Feldrake, and then just did Shutterwalk thing of get a really big Feldrake, find demons that I could play from there. Just big demons, gave them Divine Shield, and won from there. And you know, once you get the divine shield on demons, it's hard to outscale them. So cool. Really appreciate you guys listening. Hoping in the future I'll do more of a breakdown on each of the builds and how to play them. But this is where I'm getting at. I think this hopefully will help people that are kind of in that, you know, similar stuck range around, you know, something around 6K or below. Um, you know, I think, you know, my next challenge is going to be playing a lot more for first. I think, you know, that's probably my biggest struggle is I do really well in that, you know, second through fifth spot. Um, but once I get there, you know, that's how you start, you know, getting first, and you know, you see the streamers that have all the first on the side, and you know, they'll just give you stuff of, you know, play better, and I'm hoping this is a little bit more um, secure advice for how to actually do that. So cool, thanks for watching. Hope y'all have a good one.
Deputize that one right quick. You've staked quite the claim. Now you gotta defend it. They sure won't want to be messing with the likes of you again. a showdown. Watch out for in-laws out there.